I burned the house down. My father's house. The one he left to her. The woman who pretended to love him, married him in secret, and turned him against his only daughter. I watched it go up in flames from the hill across the road. The fire ate the wooden porch first, then crawled up the walls like red hands trying to pull the house down into hell. I didn't smile. I didn't cry either. I just stood there, hands trembling, heart cold. It was done. Everything he ever owned, everything she stole, was gone. But I wasn't finished. You see, that wasn't just revenge. That was justice. And it all started 5 years ago, when my father met her. It was just me and Dad for as long as I could remember. Mom died when I was 7, and after that it was always just us. He'd call me his #1 girl, and we'd do everything together: fishing trips, pancake Sundays, movie nights with too much popcorn. Even when he got busy with work, he'd always find time for me. I thought nothing could ever break what we had. I was wrong. Her name was Cassandra. She came into our lives wearing high heels, red lipstick, and a smile too sharp to be real. I met her one winter afternoon. I came home from school to find her sitting in Mom's old chair, her legs crossed like she owned the place. My dad was laughing at something she said, his eyes crinkling in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Sweetheart, this is Cassandra," he said, like he was introducing me to a long-lost friend. She gave me a sweet little wave. "You must be Emily. I've heard so much about you." I wanted to like her, I really did. But something in me whispered danger. I was 14, not stupid. Things moved fast. Too fast. Within a few months, Cassandra was spending the night. Then she moved in. Suddenly, our pancakes were gluten-free and tasteless. Our fishing trips got canceled. Dad was always busy. "Cassandra needs help with this," or "Cassandra's not feeling well." I started to fade into the background. My own father barely noticed. By the time I turned 16, I had become invisible in my own home. The final blow came the day I overheard them in the kitchen. I had just gotten back from school early and they didn't hear me come in. Their voices were low, but I caught enough. "She's almost out of the house," Cassandra was saying. "When she's gone, it'll just be us." I know," Dad replied, his voice tired. "I've been thinking of rewriting the will." I froze. "Good," she said, her voice like honey. "You know how I feel about old baggage." Old baggage. That's what I was to her. And soon to him too. I didn't say anything that day. I just walked back out the door and sat behind the garage until it got dark. Something inside me broke, something I couldn't fix. But I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. I tried to talk to Dad. I asked him if we could have a weekend together like old times. He said he was too busy with life stuff. He promised we would soon. That soon never came. When I graduated, I looked out into the crowd and saw only Cassandra clapping. Dad didn't come. Later he said he had food poisoning. I didn't believe him. When I turned 18, I left the house. I moved in with my friend Kayla and started working 2 jobs to save for college. I called Dad sometimes. He almost never picked up. When he did, Cassandra was always in the background, reminding him of this or that. He always sounded distracted, like I was some telemarketer trying to sell him something he didn't want. Then 3 years later, the call came. Dad had died in his sleep. Heart attack. I cried for 2 straight days. Not just because he was gone, but because of how he left me. At the funeral, Cassandra wore black lace and fake tears. She hugged me with those arms I always imagined were full of knives. She leaned in and whispered, "He loved you, you know." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just nodded. 2 weeks after the funeral, the lawyer read the will. I sat there, hands folded, heart pounding. And when he said my name wasn't in it, not once, my world cracked again. He left everything to Cassandra. The house, the savings, the cars, his guitar, the one we used to sing songs with. All of it. Not even a letter. Not even a memory. Afterward, Cassandra stood in the hallway outside the lawyer's office, all fake sympathy and crocodile tears. "I'm sorry, Emily. He did what he thought was best." I walked away without a word. But inside me, something hard and sharp began to grow. She thought she won. She thought she erased me from his life. But she forgot something important. I was his daughter. I started digging. It wasn't hard to find cracks in her perfect life. Cassandra had secrets, dark ones, lies she thought no one would ever uncover. But I found them one by one. And I used them. It started small, anonymous emails to people she owed money to. Then bigger, an envelope to the IRS with copies of forgotten documents. A few months later, the whispers began. She lost her job first, then her friends, then her reputation. One day, she was escorted out of a fancy boutique in town after trying to return something she'd stolen. But I wasn't done. She still had the house. His house. My house. That's when I made the choice. One cold October night, I broke in through the back door. I went to the garage, grabbed the gas can. Every step felt like thunder in my chest. The flames rose fast. She wasn't home, but I made sure she'd see what happened. I made sure she knew who did it, because I left her a letter. A single sheet of paper, on the porch where the fire started. It said, "You took everything, so now you get nothing." And as I watched that house burn, a siren in the distance rising closer and closer, I thought, but that's when I heard a car screech, a voice screaming. And the one thing I didn't plan for, she came back too soon. The tires screamed as the car skidded to a halt just below the hill. The flames roared higher like they knew she had returned, casting flickering orange shadows that made her face look almost demonic. I ducked behind a tree, heart slamming like a drum. She was supposed to be gone all night. I had timed it perfectly. I had watched her leave. But she came back. No. No. Cassandra's voice tore through the night as she ran toward the blaze. Her heels clicked against the gravel before she kicked them off, stumbling barefoot across the lawn. She reached the porch, but it was already a wall of fire. I felt a stab of panic. Not guilt. Not regret. Panic. Because she was screaming like she was going to run inside. I wanted her to lose everything, but not her life. I stood up from behind the tree, ready to run toward her, to stop her, do something, anything, when headlights lit up the street behind us. Red and blue lights. The fire truck. A second later, a police cruiser. I ducked again and melted into the woods behind the hill. I didn't run, not at first. I crouched low and watched as firefighters stormed the yard, yelling at Cassandra to get back. She collapsed on her knees in the grass, screaming something about her wedding album, her jewelry, his clothes. "My husband's things are in there," she wailed. But none of it mattered. They were too late. The fire was alive now, hissing, cracking, devouring. I backed away slowly into the trees, then turned and ran until my legs burned. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just stared at the ceiling in Kayla's basement, where I'd been crashing for the past few months. My phone buzzed over and over. News alerts. Social media. People were already sharing photos of the fire, speculating about what happened. I kept refreshing the feed, waiting for someone to mention me. Nothing. Not yet. Kayla didn't come home until almost 3 a.m. She was working a double shift at the diner. When she walked in, she tossed her bag down and yawned. "You're still up? What? You waiting for Santa?" I forced a laugh. Couldn't sleep. She collapsed on the couch beside me and flicked on the TV. Local news. And there it was, the footage. A split-second shot of Cassandra wrapped in a blanket, eyes wild, hair like a nest of smoke. Kayla gasped. "Holy crap. Wasn't that your old house?" I nodded. "Yeah, it was." "Jesus. That's crazy. Do they know what started it?" I shrugged. "Probably old wiring. It was always kind of falling apart." Kayla frowned. "You okay?" I nodded again, a little too fast. "Yeah. Just weird seeing it like that." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm glad you got out of that house, Sam. That woman was always off." "Yeah," I said softly. "She was." The next morning, I walked into town. I passed the smoldering remains of the house on purpose. The fire was out, but the ruins still steamed, blackened boards poking up like bones. Yellow tape danced in the wind. Cassandra was nowhere in sight. I kept walking, my heart a knot. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel relieved. What I felt was unsettled. I had won, right? So, why did it feel like something wasn't finished? That afternoon, I got a call from a block number. I didn't answer. Then it came again. And again. The fourth time, I picked up. A voice, soft and low. "You think this is over?" It was her. I froze. "I know it was you," she whispered. "I saw the note. I read it. And I'll make sure you burn for this." Then the line went dead. My hands shook as I dropped the phone. My ears rang with silence. Cassandra wasn't just angry. She was coming for me. That's when the real game began. The first move came the next day. I went to my job at the bookstore downtown, only to be told I'd been let go. "Sorry, my manager said. Someone called and told corporate you were under investigation for arson." My throat dried up. "That's not true." He held up his hands. "I don't care if it's true or not. HR says we can't take risks." I stumbled outside. The wind cut through my jacket like knives. Cassandra wasn't wasting time. She was coming hard and fast. And if I didn't act soon, she'd ruin me before I could finish what I started. But I had one thing she didn't expect. I knew a secret about Cassandra. A big one. She wasn't my dad's first love after Mom died. There had been someone else. Her name was Jolene. A quiet, kind woman who used to volunteer at the library. I remembered her from a few years back. Dad dated her for a little while, but suddenly they broke up. No one ever said why. I found her address in an old phone book from the attic. She lived just outside town in a trailer park by the lake. I decided to visit her. When I knocked, a tired-looking woman with graying hair opened the door. Her eyes narrowed when she saw me. "I'm Emily, Frank's daughter." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in." The place was small but clean. A crocheted blanket hung over the back of the couch. A photo of a golden retriever sat on the table. "Why are you here?" she asked. I didn't waste time. "I think Cassandra is trying to destroy me. And I think she did the same thing to you." Jolene stared at me for a long time. Then she stood and walked to a cabinet in the corner. She pulled out a small box, opened it, and handed me a letter. It was from my father, dated 7 years ago. In it, he wrote about how Cassandra had shown up at his office, just a client at first. How she slowly got into his head. How Jolene warned him she was bad news. How Cassandra had lied to him about Jolene cheating. How he believed her and let Jolene go. My stomach turned. "She's a poison," Jolene said softly. "And you're not the first person she's hurt." I left that trailer with a fire growing in my chest. Cassandra had done this before, split people apart, turned them into enemies, taken what wasn't hers. But I had proof now. The question was, what was I going to do with it? I started by leaking parts of the letter online anonymously, just enough to spark doubt. It spread faster than I expected. People began whispering again, this time about her lies, her web, her manipulation. But that night, as I walked back to Kayla's house, I knew something was wrong. The front door was open. I crept in, heart thudding. The living room lights were off. I called out softly, "Kayla?" No answer. Then I saw it, scrawled across the wall in red spray paint. "See you soon." My breath caught, and then I heard the back door creak open. She was here. Cassandra had come for me. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. My heart was thundering so loud I was sure she could hear it. The back door creaked again, slow, careful, like someone was easing it shut. I backed toward the kitchen counter and grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a metal flashlight. My fingers curled around it tightly. I whispered, "Kayla?" "Just in case." No answer. A shadow flickered across the hallway near the back of the house. She was inside. I had two options, run or fight. I chose the door. I bolted, hard in my throat, crashing out the front and into the street. I didn't stop until I was 2 blocks away. My legs felt like rubber. My lungs burned. I ducked behind a row of trash bins in the alley behind an old bakery and tried to steady my breathing. I checked my phone. Nothing from Kayla. I called her twice. Voicemail. Panic twisted my insides. What if she was home? What if something happened to her? I needed help. But I couldn't go to the police, not yet. If Cassandra spun the story right, I could end up behind bars. She had the house, the will, the lies stacked neatly on her side. I had fire and fury. But if she was willing to come after me, scare me like this, she wasn't going to stop. I had to finish it before she did. Before someone else got hurt. I waited until dawn before returning to the house. Kayla's car wasn't in the driveway. The spray paint was still on the wall, bold and red like a wound. But there was no sign of Cassandra. No sign of a break-in. Nothing stolen. Just that message. See you soon. I didn't clean it. I didn't touch it. Instead, I packed my things, what little I had, and left before Kayla could come home. I left a note. I'm sorry. Don't stay here. She knows where I live. I spent the next 2 days sleeping in my car, parked behind a closed-down movie theater. I survived on drive-through coffee and cold fries. I didn't care about food. I didn't care about comfort. All I cared about was revenge. But I needed a plan. And for that, I needed more dirt on Cassandra. I started digging. I found old news articles about her previous marriage. A man named Richard Bennett. Wealthy, older, dead under suspicious but unconfirmed circumstances. Cassandra inherited his estate too. No charges were ever filed. But there were rumors. Whispers. I found his sister on Facebook. Her name was Marilyn. I messaged her. She didn't respond at first. But 3 days later, she sent a reply. I've been waiting for someone else to ask about Cassandra. Let's talk. We met in a quiet coffee shop 2 towns over. Marilyn looked tired, worn out from years of trying to convince people that her brother didn't just fall down those stairs. She's a black widow, she told me, stirring her tea with slow, shaky hands. She doesn't kill them herself. She makes them sick. She gets in their heads, makes them forget their children, rewrite their wills. And when they're gone, she disappears into the smoke. My mouth went dry. She did the same to my father. I believe you, she said, locking eyes with me. And if you're smart, you'll disappear before she does the same to you. But I wasn't smart. I was angry. That night, I broke into Cassandra's temporary apartment. I knew she was living there while the house situation got sorted by the insurance company. I waited until I knew she'd be gone. She had a court meeting the next morning. A civil case she was trying to file against the insurance company for emotional damages. I picked the lock. It was easier than it should have been. The place was clean. Too clean. I went through her drawers. Her closet. I didn't know what I was looking for until I found it. A black notebook. It was buried under a pile of old tax returns. I opened it, and what I read made my skin crawl. It was a record. A diary. Not of emotions, but of events. Movements. Names. Schedules. Mine. Kayla's. The lawyer. The fire inspector. It was detailed, terrifyingly detailed. She had been tracking me. She knew where I was. Knew who I talked to. Knew I was digging. My hands shook as I flipped the pages, and then I saw it, taped to one of the pages, a small photo. Of me. Outside the coffee shop with Marilyn. She knew about that too. I snapped pictures of every page with my phone, careful not to leave a trace. But as I turned to leave, I heard the key turn in the lock. I froze. The door swung open. Cassandra stepped inside, bags of groceries in her arms, sunglasses still on. She paused when she saw me, frozen in the middle of her apartment, notebook in hand. For a split second, neither of us moved. Then she dropped the bags. Well, she said, her voice low and smooth. Look who finally found her backbone. I backed away slowly, the flashlight from before now tucked in my bag. Stay back, I said, holding the notebook out like a weapon. I know everything now. Her smile didn't move. You don't know anything, sweetheart. I know what you did to my dad. He did that to himself, she snapped, her voice cracking for the first time. He let me in. He gave me everything. I didn't take anything he didn't hand over on a silver platter. You poisoned him. I loved him, she hissed, stepping closer. And he loved me. He stopped loving you. That hit harder than I expected. But I didn't flinch. I'm giving this to the police. She laughed. They'll never believe you. I'm not just giving them the book, I said. I have the letter. I have the photos. The sister of your first husband is ready to talk. You're not as clean as you think you are. For a second, something dark and cruel flashed in her eyes. Then she lunged. I barely got the flashlight out of my bag in time. I swung it, hard, and it connected with her shoulder. She screamed and fell back, crashing into the table. I ran. I didn't stop until I got to the car, fumbling with the keys, heart screaming in my chest. I peeled out of the lot, tires shrieking. In the rearview mirror, I saw her stumble out onto the street, clutching her shoulder. She was still alive, but now she knew I had the notebook. Now it was war, and I had no idea what she would do next. I drove for hours without knowing where I was going. Every time I glanced in the mirror, I imagined Cassandra's face behind me, cold, furious, waiting. I ended up on an old country road somewhere past the county line. The sun was setting, bleeding red into the sky, like the warning before a storm. Eventually, I pulled into a quiet rest stop by a field full of broken-down tractors and overgrown weeds. There was an old vending machine humming near the bathroom and a single flickering lamp above a picnic table. It looked like the kind of place people forgot existed. Perfect. I parked, shut off the engine, and tried to breathe. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The notebook was on the passenger seat, pages still slightly bent from when I'd grabbed it. I flipped it open again, trying to calm myself by reading it more carefully. Page after page confirmed my worst fears. Cassandra hadn't just planned my father's downfall, she had rehearsed it, piece by piece.
Notes about how to isolate him.
How to slowly cut him off from me. Reminders to increase dependency, encourage guilt, schedule more doctor visits. She even had his medication list written down, with a star next to one particular pill. Lorazepam, the sedative. She hadn't just manipulated him. She had drugged him. I stared at the word for a long time. My father hadn't been sick.
He had been made sick.
Cassandra made sure he couldn't think clearly. That he forgot to call me. Forgot to love me. And then he died in his sleep. I suddenly couldn't breathe. I leaned out of the car and threw up into the dirt. Somewhere behind me, a truck passed by on the road. I ducked on instinct, heart pounding, but it didn't stop. Just kept going. I needed to make a move. So I did what I should have done weeks ago. I called Marilyn. When she picked up, I didn't waste time. I have her diary. The one where she planned everything. There was a long pause on the other end. Can you bring it to me? She asked.
No.
It's too dangerous. But I can scan it. I'll email it page by page. Good, she said. Because the police aren't going to believe me without real evidence. But if we both show up, together, with matching stories, maybe, just maybe, they'll have to listen. It was a plan. A fragile one. But it was all I had. I slept in the car that night, the notebook clutched to my chest. Every time a sound stirred in the woods nearby, I jolted awake. A snapping twig. A dog barking. My dreams were filled with fire and Cassandra's voice whispering my name. At dawn, I drove into town and found a print-and-ship store. I used their scanner to upload every single page. I sent copies to Marilyn, to a cloud drive, to 2 different email addresses I made on the spot. And 1 copy to the police. No names. No note. Just the truth. By that afternoon, it was out of my hands. But Cassandra wasn't going to let it end there. That night, my phone lit up with a new number. I didn't answer. Seconds later, a text came through. You've made a mistake, Emily. Then another. You think I've lost everything. But I haven't lost you yet. The last one came with a photo. It was Kayla, tied to a chair. Tears on her cheeks. I dropped the phone. My body went ice cold. She had Kayla, the one person who still believed in me. who gave me a place to sleep, who never asked too many questions. Cassandra had taken her. The next message came with an address. A warehouse on the edge of town. Abandoned years ago. Everyone knew it was falling apart. No cameras. No neighbors. And one last message. Come alone, or she dies. I wanted to call the cops, but I knew how Cassandra played the game. If I called them and she found out, Kayla would pay the price. I had to go, but not unprepared. I grabbed the flashlight, taped a pocket knife to the side, tucked the notebook in my coat, and just before I left, I took one more thing. A USB stick with all the evidence. I had uploaded the diary pages and labeled them in folders. I slipped it into my boot. If I didn't make it out, someone had to. The warehouse was just as I remembered. Dark, dead, falling apart like a skeleton left in the wind. I parked the car far off and walked the last block. When I got to the door, it was already open. Inside, it was dim and cold. The metal walls echoed every sound. A dripping pipe. A creaking beam. My footsteps. Cassandra. I called out, voice trembling. Let her go. Nothing. Then a light flicked on overhead. And there she was. Kayla, tied to a chair in the middle of the room, duct tape over her mouth. Her eyes wide. She tried to scream through the tape. And behind her, Cassandra stepped out from the shadows, dressed in black, holding something in her hand.
A knife.
You made me do this, she said, voice calm. Too calm. You ruined everything. I gave your father purpose. I gave him peace. You killed him, I shouted. You used him and threw him away. I loved him in ways you couldn't understand, she said, circling Kayla slowly. He was broken when I met him.
Lost.
I fixed that. You were just a reminder of all his pain. So I erased you. You erased yourself, I said, stepping closer. He would have seen it. You just didn't give him the chance. She pointed the knife at me, put the notebook down. I held it tight.
No. Put it
down. Kayla let out a muffled scream. I did the only thing I could think of. I tossed the notebook to the side, toward the far corner of the warehouse. Cassandra flinched, her eyes following it for just 1 second. And that was all I needed. I charged. We slammed into each other like animals. The knife clattered away. She clawed at me, screeching, but I slammed the flashlight into her side, just like before. She fell to the ground, groaning. I ripped the tape off Kayla's mouth. Are you okay? Behind you, she screamed. I turned. Too late. Cassandra was up again, blood on her lip, fury in her eyes, and she had a crowbar in her hands. She swung. Everything went black. The world came back in pieces. Pain first, splitting, hot pain blooming at the side of my head. Then sound, muffled at first like I was underwater. A voice calling my name. A girl crying. Kayla. I blinked, my vision swimming. The metal roof above me twisted and danced like waves. The air smelled like rust, sweat, and smoke. Then her face appeared above mine, Cassandra. Her hair wild, mouth twisted into a sneer. I should have done this sooner, she hissed. You're just like your father.
Weak.
Always getting in the way. My hands moved slowly, sluggish from the blow. But I felt the edge of the flashlight still tucked into my coat. Her grip tightened around the crowbar. You lose, Emily, she said. You always lose. No, I croaked. Not this time. I brought the flashlight up with everything I had left. It slammed into her chin. She stumbled backward, shrieking in pain. I rolled to my side, crawled toward Kayla, and grabbed the pocket knife I'd taped to the flashlight earlier. I sawed at the ropes on her wrists. Come on, I whispered. Kayla was sobbing, her eyes never leaving Cassandra, who was getting back up again, holding her bleeding mouth. I finally cut through the last rope. Kayla jumped to her feet and grabbed the crowbar Cassandra had dropped when I hit her. She didn't hesitate.
She swung.
The sound was sickening. Cassandra hit the ground and didn't get back up. Kayla dropped the crowbar and collapsed next to me, shaking. Is she? I crawled over to Cassandra's body, heart thudding. She was still breathing.
Barely.
She's alive, I said. But she's not going anywhere. Kayla pulled me into a hug, so tight it hurt. I thought she was going to kill you. She almost did. But not today. We didn't run. Not this time. Kayla called 911 while I pulled out the USB stick from my boot. I tucked it into her hand. Give this to them. Don't let anyone touch it. Not even me. She nodded, her hands trembling. The police came fast. Too fast for me to make a plan. They found Cassandra unconscious on the floor, the crowbar beside her. They found Kayla still crying and me, bloody, dizzy, and barely able to stand. They asked 100 questions. We told them the truth. All of it. And for once, they listened. I gave them the diary, the USB, the emails with Marilyn, the screenshots, the photo of my dad's prescription bottle with the pills she never told his doctors about. It was everything. Every ugly piece. I spent the night in the hospital. A concussion, a cracked rib, a few stitches. Kayla stayed beside me the whole time. And when the sun came up, so did the news. Local widow arrested in connection with suspicious death of former husband. They used her mugshot. They told my story. But the best part? The final page of her notebook had a name I hadn't noticed before. A doctor. One she paid under the table to prescribe my father's sedatives. He confessed everything. And just like that, Cassandra's house of cards came tumbling down. Her accounts were frozen. Her lawyer dropped her. Her face was plastered across every paper in the county. People started remembering me again. Not as the girl who burned her father's house, but as the daughter who fought back. Weeks passed. I stayed with Kayla while I healed. Marilyn visited once with flowers and a tearful hug. Your dad would be proud, she said softly. I nodded, but I didn't say anything, because a part of me still wasn't sure. Maybe he would be proud. Or maybe he'd still be too far gone in her spell to see me clearly. I'd never know. But I did know this. Cassandra had lost. And for once I didn't. One night, I drove back to what was left of my father's house. The ruins had been cleared. Just dirt now. Empty space. I sat on the hood of my car and watched the stars. And I whispered, I miss you. Then I lit a match and dropped it into a small pile of ash I'd saved in a jar from the ruins. The wind picked up, took it away, carried it into the dark. Behind me, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't know. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. I picked it up. Emily Langston, the voice asked. Yes, this is Officer Reyes. We just got a statement from a new witness. Someone who says you might not know the whole story yet. My throat went dry. What do you mean? The witness claims there was someone else helping Cassandra. Someone close to your father. Maybe even in your family. We think she didn't act alone. Silence. Then he added, we need you to come in. There's more you need to see. I stared at the phone. My fingers went cold. Because if that was true, the real story wasn't over. Not even close. The next morning, I walked into the police station with a storm inside me. They put me in a small interview room, gray walls, buzzing light, no windows. Officer Reyes came in a few minutes later with a folder in his hand and a look on his face like he didn't know where to begin. He sat down across from me, flipped open the file, and laid out a photo. A face I hadn't seen in years. My uncle, James Langston. My father's younger brother. I blinked, confused. I haven't talked to him since Dad's funeral. Reyes nodded slowly. We've reviewed his financials. There's evidence that Cassandra sent him regular payments through a shell company for almost a year before your father passed. What? I whispered. He pushed a document across the table. Take a look. Here, March 14th, June 8th, August 2nd. Each time, $2,000 deposited into a private account, but we traced it back to his social security number. I stared at the page like it was written in a foreign language. Why would she pay him? Reyes folded his hands. That's what we're trying to understand. But it gets worse. He pulled out another sheet. A signed affidavit. This came from a nurse who worked at your father's private clinic. She said your uncle came in with Cassandra several times, claiming to be your father's medical proxy. They signed forms together, asking for changes to his medication. Lower doses. Increased sedatives. I felt sick. All this time, I thought it was just Cassandra. I thought she wormed her way in alone. But she had help. From blood. Reyes continued, we believe your uncle may have been more involved than you realized. Possibly from the beginning. Maybe even from the moment your father changed his will. I leaned back in the chair, stunned. My dad trusted him. He thought James was the only family left who cared. Reyes nodded grimly. We have a warrant out for his arrest. But he's not home. Not at his office. He's gone.
Gone.
Vanished. Like a shadow slipping out before the lights come on. I left the station an hour later with copies of the evidence and a brand new wound in my heart. Betrayal didn't always scream. Sometimes it whispered. I didn't go back to Kayla's right away. I needed space to think. I drove for hours, winding through country roads until the city lights were far behind me. And then I remembered something. A storage unit. Dad had one. A small place on the edge of town. He always said it was for overflow. Extra tools, old fishing gear, the kind of junk he didn't want cluttering the garage. But maybe there was more. I drove straight there, not bothering to call ahead. I still had the spare key on my old house keys, tucked in the glove box. Unit 114. The place looked untouched, dusty, forgotten. I opened the metal door, and a wave of stale air hit me. Inside were boxes.
Dozens of them.
Labeled in my dad's handwriting. Taxes 2007 to 2010. Books, law school. Photos, Emily 4 to 10 years. I choked up seeing that one. I opened it carefully. Inside were pictures of me, at the beach, eating ice cream, dressed as a dinosaur on Halloween. He hadn't forgotten me. He had kept me. That box broke me. But then I found another. Unlabeled.
Locked.
I used a hammer from the shelf to break the clasp. Inside was a binder.
Thick.
Heavy. And on the first page, in my father's handwriting, if anything happens to me, Cassandra and James are responsible. I sat on the concrete floor and read every single page. It was all there.
Notes.
Letters. Signed copies of statements. Even a cassette tape. Yes, a tape where he recorded a conversation between Cassandra and James. I found an old tape player in another box, popped it in, and pressed play. My dad's voice. I don't like this. She's been acting strange. James' voice. You're being paranoid. Just take the pills, Frank. Cassandra. You're tired, baby. You don't need to worry about wills and money right now. Dad. Emily's my daughter. I want her protected. Cassandra. She doesn't deserve anything. Let it go. James. We already filed the changes. It's done.
Click.
The tape ended. My hands were shaking. My breath came fast. I had been right about her. But now I had something I didn't expect. Proof that my own family sold me out. I made copies. Took pictures. Loaded the tape into my backpack with the binder. I was leaving the storage unit when I saw the car. A black SUV. No plates. Parked across the street. Someone watching. I ducked behind the side of the unit and waited. The door opened. A man stepped out.
Tall.
Bald. Dressed in black. Not a cop. Not Cassandra. Not someone I recognized. But definitely sent by someone. I watched him scan the lot, then speak into a walkie-talkie. I didn't wait to find out who he was calling. I slipped out the back gate, ran to my car, and got out of there. I drove straight to the police station again, heart racing. Reyes met me in the parking lot. I have something, I told him, breathless. Everything. My dad left it. In a storage unit. Cassandra and James, they planned this together. He knew. His eyes widened. You have it now? I nodded and handed him the binder, the tape, the photos. He flipped through the first few pages, and his face changed. This is enough, he said. This is finally enough. They put out an official warrant for James Langston that night. And Cassandra? She was denied bail. They reopened my father's case as a criminal investigation, possible manslaughter, conspiracy to defraud, and attempted murder for what she did to me and Kayla. The news blew up. Every headline had her name in it. New evidence surfaces in Langston estate case. Daughter exposes Black Widow and her accomplice. Justice for Emily. The battle that brought down a killer. But even with all that, it didn't feel over.
Not yet.
Because James was still missing. And one morning, a week later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photo.
Of me.
Standing outside the storage unit. Taken that night. Written on the back in black marker. You're next. I dropped the photo, heart hammering. Because now I knew James hadn't disappeared. He was watching, waiting, and he was coming for me. I didn't sleep that night. The photo lay on my desk like it was alive, its message pulsing louder than any threat Cassandra ever made. You're next. Those 2 words turned my skin to ice. I triple-locked every door. Stacked furniture in front of the windows. Kept a knife under my pillow. But no matter how many locks I turned, I couldn't shut out the truth. James Langston was out there. He'd seen me. He knew I had the evidence. And if he had the same darkness in him that Cassandra did, and now I knew he did, he wouldn't stop until I was silenced. The next morning, I took the photo to Officer Reyes.
He stared at it, jaw tight.
No prints. No postmark. Dropped off by hand or through a third-party courier. We'll canvass the area, but he's being careful. What do I do? I asked. My voice cracked. Reyes looked at me like he wanted to say run. But instead, he said, you stay alert. Stay with people. You let us know the moment you see anything strange. Too late for that. Strange had already started. That afternoon, Kayla's car alarm went off in the middle of the night. We rushed out, and I found the windshield shattered. On the driver's seat was another message, carved with something sharp into the leather. She's not the only one who can burn. Kayla wanted to leave. I didn't blame her. This isn't worth it anymore, Em, she said, pacing the kitchen. I love you, I do, but we're not safe. He's out there, and he's playing a game that only he knows the rules to. I swallowed hard. You can go. I understand. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. You think I'm going to leave you now? I didn't answer. We packed our bags and moved to a motel near the edge of town. Reyes arranged for extra patrols, but I knew if James wanted to get to me, he would. I needed to flip the game. Go from prey to predator. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to visit my grandmother. She lived in a quiet retirement community, the kind of place where the clocks tick too loud and everything smells like soup. She opened the door, her gray eyes widening when she saw me. Emily, she whispered. Is something wrong? I stepped inside and told her everything. About Cassandra.
About James.
About my father's death. She sat in silence, one hand pressed to her mouth. Then, slowly, she stood and walked to her old desk. She opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a wooden box. I kept this, she said. I didn't know why at the time, but maybe now. Inside the box were old family documents, letters, photos, and something I never knew existed. My father's original will, unaltered. It had my name on it. I flipped through the pages, breath catching. There it was in his own handwriting. To my daughter, Emily Rose Langston, I leave everything. Tears filled my eyes. He never meant to cut me out, I whispered. No, sweetheart, Grandma said, her voice tight. He never did. I stared down at the document. Dated 2 months before he died. This changes everything, I said. Grandma touched my hand. Be careful, Em. James always had something broken in him. Your father knew, but he didn't want to believe it. I left the house with the will clutched to my chest like a shield. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about restoring the truth. I met Reyes at the station and handed him the will. His eyes widened. This trumps the new one. If we can prove it wasn't revoked and that the change was under duress, he didn't have to finish. It would unravel everything Cassandra and James had done. But I knew they wouldn't let it go down easy. I was right. 2 nights later, the motel caught fire. The alarm blared at 2:12 a.m. Smoke curled under the door before I even opened my eyes. Kayla screamed. We barely got out. I dragged her through the window and hit the parking lot barefoot, coughing and gasping. The fire spread fast. Too fast. Just like last time. Only this time, it wasn't revenge. It was a warning. A final message from James. This ends now. The fire department said the blaze started from a broken gas line. But I knew better. That line didn't break. It was cut. Reyes put us in protective custody after that. A small, gray-walled safe house with no windows and one locked door. I paced for hours. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop thinking about James watching from somewhere. Smiling. But then, an email came through. Anonymous sender. No subject. Just a video attachment. I hit play, and I nearly dropped the phone. It was a live recording. The camera was moving through a basement. Dim lights. Concrete floor. Then it turned to show my grandmother, bound to a chair, a gag in her mouth, tears in her eyes. Then a voice from behind the camera.
Smooth. Calm.
You want your inheritance, Emily? Come get it. Then the video cut out. I screamed. Kayla grabbed the phone. Oh my God. We rushed to Reyes. He went pale when he saw the video. We have to find her, I said. She's the only one left who can confirm the original will. She's the last piece. He nodded, already barking orders to the other officers. But before we could act, another email came in. This one had coordinates. An abandoned cabin up in the woods near Echo Ridge. Miles from town. No cameras. No witnesses. We knew what it was. A trap. But we didn't have a choice. We had to go. Reyes insisted we wait for backup. I didn't. I took Kayla's car and drove like a bullet through the dark, winding forest roads. Rain poured down, making the windshield wipers useless. Lightning cracked the sky. And then I saw it. The cabin. Lights flickering inside. I parked 100 feet away and got out, flashlight in hand, knife in my coat pocket. I motioned for Kayla to stay back, but she grabbed my arm. We do this together, she said. We crept to the front door. I pushed it open. And there she was, my grandmother, tied to a chair.
Crying.
And beside her, James Langston, gun in hand, smile on his face. I told you, he said softly. You're next. For a long second, no one moved. James stood with the gun leveled at my chest, his face calm, almost blank, like a man watching the end of a movie he already knew by heart. Behind him, my grandmother whimpered through the gag, her eyes locked on mine, begging. Let her go, I said, stepping forward. Kayla grabbed my wrist. Emily. Let her go, I repeated, louder this time. This is between us, James. She's done nothing to you. He tilted his head. She kept the will, he said. She knew. Could have saved us all a lot of trouble if she just burned it like I told her to. My stomach twisted. She refused to lie for you. That doesn't make her guilty. James smirked. You think I care about guilt? His hand twitched on the gun. I took a slow breath. You're a coward. You always were. Hiding behind Cassandra. Hiding behind lies. You're not some mastermind, James. You're a shadow. That made his eyes narrow. I did what had to be done. He never appreciated me.
Always talked about you.
Even when he was dying, it was Emily this and Emily that. I made him rich. I fixed the books, covered his debt. And what did I get? A paycheck, I said. Not a legacy. Not love. Shut up, he barked. But I didn't.
Not now.
You let Cassandra poison him. You helped her rewrite the will. You sold out your own blood for a few deposits and a slice of a house that never belonged to you. James was breathing harder now. The gun wavered slightly in his hand. Kayla whispered, "Stall him. Just a little longer." She was reaching slowly behind her into her coat pocket, where I knew she had her taser. She always carried it after Cassandra's threats. I nodded, barely. James stepped forward, waving the gun between us. You think any of this matters? That the cops are going to believe you over me? You're just a bitter little girl with a grudge. No, I said, holding up my phone. I'm the girl who live-streamed this entire conversation. His face froze. I turned the phone so he could see the blinking red dot on the screen. This feed's been going to Officer Reyes since we stepped out of the car, I added. They've been listening to everything. Your confession. Your threats. It's all recorded. They're probably parked down the road right now, waiting for a signal. He lunged. Kayla moved faster. The crack of the taser filled the room, bright light flashing as it hit his chest. James screamed, convulsed, and dropped like a puppet with cut strings. The gun clattered across the wooden floor. I kicked it away, then rushed to my grandmother, tearing the gag off and cutting through the ropes. She sobbed and grabbed me, her frail arms trembling around my neck. You came, she whispered. I knew you would. Kayla was already calling Reyes. We got him, she said. Cabin at Echo Ridge.
He's down.
Send backup now. The next 30 minutes were a blur. Police stormed in. They took James away in cuffs, still twitching, eyes wide and furious, but saying nothing. They read him his rights as he screamed that we'd set him up, that it was all lies. But the live stream told the truth. The video went viral within hours. Emily Langston outsmarts her father's killer. Daughter traps uncle in live confession. Grandmother rescued in time. Cassandra, still in prison, was hit with 3 more charges. With James's confession, the original will, the nurse's testimony, and the payments, no more shadows. Everything unraveled. Within weeks, my father's estate was legally returned to me. The house, though gone, was rebuilt, brick by brick, stronger and warmer than the last. I didn't move in right away. I let it sit, waiting for the right moment. I wasn't building a home. Not yet. I was reclaiming what had been stolen. Cassandra's trial came first. The courtroom was silent when they played the recordings. She didn't say a word.
Didn't look at me.
She was sentenced to 30 years without parole. James's trial was shorter. He pled guilty to conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder, and unlawful imprisonment. He cried when the judge read the sentence. Life in prison. He didn't look at me either. Not once. Kayla and I moved into a small apartment outside the city. Quiet. Peaceful. For the first time in years, I slept without checking the locks 5 times. Grandma came over every Sunday for dinner. She brought pies and stories, good ones. Ones about my dad that didn't end in fire and betrayal. One afternoon, I sat alone on the hill where the old house once stood, the one I burned down. The grass had grown back. The air smelled like honeysuckle. I closed my eyes and let the sun hit my face. I did it, Dad, I whispered. I got it all back. And I made sure they paid for what they did to you.
To me.
To us. A breeze passed through the trees. Almost like he was answering. Maybe he was. I stood, brushing dirt from my jeans, and turned toward the future. No more ghosts. No more revenge.
Just me. Whole. Free.
And finally at peace.